What am I doing? That's not it. Ugh. Shit. That's delicious. This is just a behind the scenes look at the makings of 420 TV, Freedom's Films here on Mountain High Time. The 420 TV News for the program Mountain High Time. Oh my God, that's funny. Oh yeah, now it's good. Let's see what everything looks like here. This is totally not what I had expected.
She was living in a single room with 3 other individuals. One of them was a male, and the other 2, well, the other 2 were females. God only knows what they were up to in there. And furthermore, Susan, I wouldn't be the least bit surprised to learn that all 4 of them habitually smoke marijuana cigarettes. Marijuana cigarettes. Marijuana cigarettes.
Welcome to 420 TV. Well, at least that's what it was formerly known as. Now we're Mountain High Time in and around here on Mountain High Time. I'm your host, Ransom Godwin. Thanks for joining us while we go through the news. Not all of the important news headlines you might find important or the mainstream media wants you to pay attention to, but the ones that this stoner was looking at. Tripping on. So let's do that now. Let's go tripping through the news on Mountain High Time. And thanks for coming. Look, Marine vet, remember that guy that choked the dude out in the subway that was acting a fool? The other Marine guy that testified against him backtracks on what he was saying because he was bullshitting. The Marine vet whose testimony suggested Daniel Penny, another Marine vet, misused potentially lethal chokehold, backtracks during examination, according to this report from Fox News, however you want to say it. On Thursday, a U.S. Marine Corps veteran testified in Manhattan court in the manslaughter trial of Daniel Penny, who is accused of killing the erratic fucktard homeless guy who was fucking around and found out, Jordan Neely. I don't know what his trip was. He was tripping out. But anyway, the guy Daniel Penny gave him a chokehold in the New York City subway on May of 2023. Joseph Kaballer, a former Marine sergeant who served alongside Penny, initially suggested that Penny could have misused a blood choke, a defense method he said is intended to incapacitate an aggressor by applying pressure to the carotid artery. Do I need to go into the NPR voice? I think I do. If used for too long, the maneuver can be lethal. Of course it can. You can choke the fucking somebody out with an air choke or a blood choke. So the only difference being that when you do an air choke, you're kind of just mushing down on the Adam's apple until they can't breathe properly. And they usually give up very fast after applying this method. I know this from experience. Now, a blood choke, on the other hand, is whenever you get that elbow right under their chin and then you push back on your own forearm, squeezing as hard as you can until you mush both carotid arteries on either side of the neck, and people go night-night. And sometimes, if you keep holding it, they go night-night for good. I don't know what they're going to say. Let me read their Fox article. If the maneuver is used too long, the maneuver can be lethal, said the Marines are instructed not to use it for more than 5 seconds in training. However, after more examination, he backed off the suggestion and said it could have been some kind of air choke instead of a blood choke, per Fox News. A blood choke is distinctly different from an air choke, which is capable of maintaining pressure on an aggressor's Adam's apple for several minutes, per the outlet. Per the outlet? You mean it's like his mouth? During initial testimony, prosecutors presented a photograph of Penny conducting a chokehold, and Kaballer, or maybe it's Kabayer, I don't know. Anyway, he testified that it appeared that it to be an attempt at a 4-figure blood choke, but suggested that Penny's arm could be exerting pressure on Neely's trachea instead for an air choke. So in other words, he couldn't tell when he looked at the video what the fuck was going on, so the motherfucker shouldn't have just misspoke and bear false testimony against this guy who was just putting down somebody that was going around assaulting, yelling, threatening, and touching and being an overall nuisance to the public at large there. He just put him night-night. And I noticed that they don't even really mention that when the police came, they gave him drugs, which might have contributed to the overall situation and led to a potential fatal outcome, because just like the George Floyd case that they did with the cop, they didn't really use all of the other contributing factors to George Floyd's health, which was that he was about to die at any second anyway from severely clogged arteries, and the fact that he was on all kinds of different drugs at the time. So dude was in real bad shape. And if you really go watch the video and you're not being biased, you can tell that cop is not really doing much to him. He's barely leaning against him. He's not even putting his weight on him. And people went insane. I've seen where cops will choke you out and mush on your head and your face in the concrete with their knee, actually applying their entire body weight. And that's not what I saw in the George Floyd thing. But hey, when you're creating the news, you got to have, a lot of drama. And speaking of drama, pow, chicka, wow, wow. Soldiers caught having sex in an Apache gunship. Now, can you imagine that? To get your thrills, you want to go and get inside the cockpit of a killing machine and get your jollies off. Couple thought to have been under the influence of alcohol discovered by a ground crew. Well, duh. I mean, otherwise, why else would you be that stupid? 2 soldiers were caught having sex in the cockpit of an Apache gunship. The pair were believed to be under the influence of alcohol, were discovered in the act by their colleagues, the Sun reported. They were allegedly engaged in intercourse in the back of the 2-seater AH-64 gunship. A ground crew is understood to have approached the aircraft to fit rain covers after a nighttime service, but reportedly heard unusual noises and saw that the rotors were swaying up and down. An air safety report, which was seen by the newspaper after it became available owing to a technical glitch, said it became apparent that the rear cockpit was occupied by 2 people engaged in sexual intercourse. Both were naked from the waist down, the male in uniform, the female civilian in civilian attire. They were ordered to exit the cockpit to get dressed. Well, everybody knows that that's where you do the lottie-dottie, up in the cockpit. That's been known for years. Why do you think they call it a cockpit in the first place? I'm just kidding. Who knows? Why do they call it a cockpit? I don't know. Anyway, I thought we would go down and look at the Trump picks so far. So all kinds of people are butthurt from either side of the supposed political spectrums. But anyway, let's check it out. Attorney General Matt Gaetz. I'm going to say yay. I like Matt Gaetz. He talks a lot of shit. He also, doesn't let him get away with, that sidey misspeak or word salad crap that they like to do to try to give the runaround when they get caught doing dirty shit. Which I like. I like this guy. He's funny. Tulsi Gabbard. I'm going to say yay. I like it. Anti-war. I like it. Marco Rubio. Now this guy, I've been keeping track of him for a long time. He is a complete neocon snake. This was, in my opinion, one of the worst choices ever for Secretary of State. This is like their version of Hillary Clinton. It's disgusting. I don't even understand what these people were thinking, but this just shows you that no matter how much they drain the swamp, it seems to be that there's always some kind of deal to let these swamp creatures stick around. John Ratcliffe. I forgot who that is. Let's look at who that is. Everybody knows Marco Smuvio. This guy. Matter of fact, he used to talk a lot of shit about Trump there. That's funny. Now, who's John Ratcliffe? This guy, I don't know much about him. I saw him on the debate. He sounds okay, the stuff he says, but he weirdly just looks untrustworthy to me, man. I don't know. That's just my personal feelings by just, every time I see him, he creeps me out. He's the governor of North Dakota, who was once little known outside of his state. Burgum is former Republican presidential primary contender who endorsed Trump and spent months traveling to drum up support for him after dropping out of the race. I don't know much about this guy, I'll be honest, but just every time I see him, he gives me the creeps. That's just my initial. I have to, educate myself on that guy because I really don't know. Robert F. Kennedy for Health and Human Services. This seems to be a big deal, and I like it. I'm going to say yay on this too. I just don't think that all of this bullshit that they're talking about, how they're just going to clean house and get rid of the swamp and all of this crap, I really think that's a bunch of mucho caca de toro. That's what I think it is. That's Bravo Sierra. And I think it's going to be just like the first time around. They may mean well, but once they find out that there's tentacles on every avenue of power, they're going to find out that it's a big-time uphill affair if they're genuinely trying to do the things that they're insinuating that they're going to do, which is clean house, get rid of corrupt and useless bureaucrats that are just sucking the life essence out of the American people. If that's actually what they're going to be doing, then I'm all for it. Now, Kristi Noem, I'm pretty sure that she is basically one of the newer neocons, and I would put her in the neocon area. Doug Collins. This guy I like so far. But it seems that no matter how much you like a guy and you listen to him and they might make sense and they seem loyal and, they're part of your movement and you're pumped about it or whatever, they turn out to be snakes. So, I don't have high hopes for really any of these. And that includes Trump down because politicians always seem to, be a politician. And I don't know if you guys remember this old video that I made. It was a music video before I actually got on, started doing news programs or shows with anybody. I would just make these little music videos that were trying to make a point. And I made one shortly right after Trump got in office that was joking about how he was going to drain the swamp. Well, they drained the swamp, but they forgot to take out the swamp creatures. They forgot to get the alligator.
This middle part was totally swampy. All of it. So, let's go down to where I started.
They've been wrong about the wars. They've been wrong about jobs. They've been wrong about everything. And the question is, are they stupid? The question is, are they stupid or do they have a plan? I actually think for the most part, they have a plan, but some are not too smart. And you're right about the swamp. Say it again. Right? You better believe it. Boy, that is... That is I said that about a week ago. And they didn't like it that much. Didn't sound that great. And the whole world picked it up. So it shows you what I know. It's crazy. Drain the swamp. We're going to drain the swamp of Washington. We're going to have fun doing it. We're all doing it together. It is funny. Funny how things like that happen.
Thank you very much. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Vice President, members of Congress, the earth shifted beneath our feet. The rebellion started as a quiet protest, spoken by families of all colors and creeds, families who just wanted a fair shot for their children and a fair hearing for their concerns. But then the quiet voices became a loud chorus as thousands of citizens now spoke out together from cities small and large all across our country. Finally, the chorus became an earthquake, and the people turned out by the tens of millions, and they were all united by one very simple but crucial demand. Drain the swamp, drain the swamp, drain the swamp, and finally the time has come. Make sure no one is left out. But it must be the plan they want, not the plan forced on them by our government. Action is not a choice, it is a necessity. Across state lines, and bring them down immediately.
Is the swamp draining Trump? So the question is the swamp draining him? Has the swamp gotten to Trump? Well, yeah, he's having to wade into the swamp to actually drain it. He's having to go into a goblin's nest, you know. He's going to have a goblin guide to take him into Mordor. I don't care if he gets a little bit of goblin blood on him or something, but I don't want to catch him in bed with a goblin. Remember that little rant I did that went viral, like 20 million views or something, just on YouTube alone? Ingratiating goblins in bed with a goblin.
Well, they drained the swamp, but they never got, guess what, the alligator. So, what does one do? There's the swamp. They sure drained it.
All of the people, all the lock it up, we're going to drain the swamp crap turned out to kind of deflate in the 4 years. Now, a lot of people would say that that's because there were so many forces against the Trump administration, and he was somehow, naive to the fact that he wasn't part of the group, and they misdirected him and lied to him and undercut him and undermined him and all of this other stuff. So if that is a possibility, we'll see this time. Susie Wiles or Wiles, I don't know much about her. I think she is the same chick that has worked on the Trump campaign before. But again, if I'm not mistaken, she's kind of with the George Bush camp of Dick Cheney's and industrial complex, tycoons, if you want to call it that. And, I was always wondering, because I know after 9/11, they passed the National Defense Authorization Act, or maybe it was in one of the other Homeland Security bills, like the Patriot Act or something. But somewhere I remember that Dick Cheney was named as the head of everything if continuity of government was initiated, in which they did do that on 9/11. So I've been wondering since then, kind of, is in fact Dick Cheney still who runs the country? Like right now, when supposedly we're giving missiles over to Russia, if we're giving missiles over to Russia, is that like Dick Cheney's doing? Is he the one that's doing that? And I wonder about these guys. Like, so let's put this back on and then go through the rest of them. See, if they're really doing what they say and they're doing, oh, you can't even see that. That's whatever. Anyway, I think you guys know who Tom Hallman is. And this guy, he's about it. If they let him really in charge of the border, it will be sealed up. They will deport all criminal invader, illegal aliens out of the country. Or it could be just a big, scam. They might be choosing and picking kind of which side of political stuff gets taken care of. It's so messed up on YouTube when you don't want to totally say your thoughts on things because you may be put in a box and named a label, and then, that you're not really, and then you get banned and you get shadow banned, which I am already. And you guys don't realize how many videos I've made that never made it to your eyesight. And matter of fact, a lot of the videos that are on my list right now are only available in other countries because like some footage I used or a soundbite I used or something, they use it for an excuse to ban it in certain areas, which is silly. But anyway, back to Tom Holman, whatever his name is. This guy's for real. If he does what he wants to do, there will be a sealed border. There will be border security. There will be mass evictions, which, depending on your ideas, may be a good or a bad thing. But as far as so-called American democracy and, the whole voting system, it's a good thing because they were going to change the demographics. And that's why they opened the borders up to everybody and anybody to infiltrate, to try to make the United States exactly like Europe. That was the goal. It's the Cloward and Piven strategy of forcing so many people into an area that they now are a separate tribe, so to speak, than the original one. And that always causes destabilization and problems when cultures clash. But despite the plans to do that, I think over here in the Americas, it wasn't working out like it was for them over in Europe because, unfortunately for them, most of the people in the Americas are Christian-centric countries and those values. So despite having different languages, would come here and eventually assimilate, and that has backfired on them. That's the whole reason that they didn't understand that people that immigrated here willingly and legally would vote against other people that just came across the border in massive amounts because they understand that it'll collapse the nation they just came to, and why institute rules and the type of living of the countries that they just came from. They tried to escape it. Of course, the legal citizens or ones that are going to be legal citizens that came in legally would vote against opening the border and allowing the country that they just got to, that they just came to for stability, would collapse under that system. So I don't know if this guy's going to really do what they say they're going to do or not. Because, like I said, it's hard to know until after the fact, because it's always hindsight is 2020. But I don't know. Some of these guys are definitely neocon snakes. We'll see how it rolls out. Mike Huckabee, give me a break. And a lot of these people in this list will do some things that are totally against the whole American first idea, which is to take care of this nation and this nation only first, until some of our social problems and our economic problems and our domestic issues are solved. And then we can start with a charity-based trade system where we can trade with other nations, kind of like the founding fathers intended in the first place. But so far, I don't know. It looks like the people, this group of people is like a 50-50 anti-war, pro-war type of demographic here. So it wouldn't be surprised if the deep state and other countries will force Trump, who supposedly is claiming to want to be a peace president, into a war. And it's kind of obvious that Iran would be that war, and that would be how we get sucked into that. Now, whether or not the other half of the joke of the right-left government shitbird is that if the other groups of Marxists got in, they would progress this World War III scenario on us a lot faster, and they still might. They still have several days to start some kind of problem that the U.S. it'll look like we're forced into a position. So that could still happen in Ukraine. And speaking of that, let's watch this video.
In the updated version of the document, aggression against Russia by any non-nuclear state, but with the support of a nuclear state, is proposed to be considered as their joint attack on Russia. Russia will also consider the possibility of using nuclear weapons when receiving reliable information about a massive launch of means of aerospace attack and their crossing of our state border. This includes strategic and tactical aircraft, as well as cruise missiles and drones, hypersonic and other delivery vehicles. Russia reserves the right to use nuclear weapons in case of aggression, including if the enemy, using conventional weapons, poses a critical threat.
It is important to note at this point that these are at this time proposals to amend Russia's nuclear weapons use doctrine. We heard from Vladimir Putin multiple scenarios in which the rules and regulations governing how Russia can use its nuclear weapons will change. The first scenario is if a non-nuclear power attacks Russia with conventional arms but poses a grave or critical threat to Russia's sovereignty, the Russian leadership will be able to use nuclear weapons to neutralize that threat. The second scenario and how things will change is if that non-nuclear power that is attacking Russia is aided, supplied, abetted by a nuclear power, then that nuclear power will be considered a party to this conflict. So a joint attack on Russia, which will mean Russia will be able to use nuclear weapons both on the non-nuclear power and the nuclear power that it'll consider attacking it. Also, Russia will be able to use, preemptively perhaps use, nuclear weapons if there is verified information, proof that there is an ongoing attack on Russia using aerospace assets, or, for example, a mass launch of drones. Again, I must mention that these are, at this time, are proposals on how Russia's first use of nuclear weapons, its nuclear doctrine, will change. Nevertheless, this is a stark warning to the West, the latest in a slew of such. Previously, Vladimir Putin had come out and said that if advanced Western missiles with great ranges are supplied to Ukraine and used against Russia for strikes deep into Russian territory, then those countries, the United States perhaps, or Great Britain or France, which supply Ukraine with extended range missiles, that they will be complicit in an attack on Russia. Russia has brushed off their arguments that they merely hand these weapons over. Russia says it has evidence, and there is no way that Ukraine can plan, launch and use these weapons without without NATO troops being involved, without NATO technical staff being involved, without NATO intelligence and NATO satellites being involved. But this comes at a dangerous time, at a time when many Western leaders are saying, ignore Putin and Russia's warnings, supply Ukraine with these missiles, and undoubtedly, even though they won't change anything, undoubtedly, Ukraine, they believe, will be able to resist Russia further. An argument that both military experts and the Russian government have said is in itself senseless.
Why they want to send those weapons over there? Why they want to poke the freaking bear? But I think they might be doing that in the little bit of time that it takes to change over presidencies. And then your boy Trump will just, he'll have to deal with what he has to deal with. And it'll look like it just unfolded that way in history.
Choking on the ashes of a runaway. Choking on the ashes of a runaway. Choking on the ashes of a runaway. What else should I be? All apologies. What else could I say? Everyone's gay. What else could I write? I don't have the right. What else should I be? All apologies. I wish I was like you, easily amused. If I might rest a song, everything is my fault. I'll take all the blame. I'm deceived from shame. Sometimes the breeze will burn. Choking on the
Plus, you have all of these weirdo deep snakes, the deep snake people that want to, get us in a bunch of shit and destabilize America and destroy it from within and from without. They haven't gone away just because this new administration is in there. And I wouldn't count on this administration having as much power as you think it does. And also, I mean, just look who the people who are getting filled up for jobs. It's like, so far, it's like a 50-50 of supposed legit, patriot type people in there. And then you got the other 50% like Rubio and the others that are just regular neocon, deep snake, swamp rats. They're more than happy to get us in war. They've been trying to completely go along with this narrative of the boogeyman of Russia to get us involved in a world war. For what other reason than to institute world government, or at least a world empire of control in the sphere of the human domain. So all these people that are wanting to put you on digital IDs and put a chip up your ass all the way up in there with a microphone and a GPS, they haven't gone away. Those people still have tremendous power and sway over not only the economy, the internet, which, by the way, I've been finding is slowly evaporating and being replaced with fact-checking articles that are not factual. Things that were long known as facts all of a sudden aren't. They're not, and they're replaced with, oh, well, that was a conspiracy theory. But it seems like the only theories out there really are the ones that the conspiracy theories are talking about, the conspiracy theorists are talking about, are just theories. So that is the biggest conspiracy theory out there, that the conspiracies out there are just theories when they're not. They're actual conspiracies. And it's weird how they've kind of replaced the word conspiracy to mean conspiracy theory. And therefore, oh, you're into conspiracies. No, I'm not into conspiracies. It's obvious that there are conspiracies and that the theories are just the ones of us trying to figure out which of the conspiracies are legit. And over again, we find out there are indeed conspiracies, plottings, and plans against the American people, American sovereignty, American human rights. You can say that, but how about constitutionally unalienable rights? You ever notice that the left and even the right loves to call this a democracy instead of a constitutional republic? They love to call it civil liberties, human rights, but never constitutional unalienable rights, which includes freedom of speech, of course, but also one's right to defend oneself and one's property and nation as a whole. So are they going to be nation protectors, or are we going to further go into the neocon world of world domination through policing of the world? Because that's just, in my opinion, not our job. They're even acting like they're going to give Ron Paul a seat at the table when it comes to their little Doge. I forgot what it stands for, but anyway, supposedly firing and getting rid of the endless amounts of useless bureaucrats that just eat at the substance of civilization and the American people. And those are the same people that vote always for the candidates that seem to have an agenda to literally destroy America from the inside, with an influx of endless visitors illegally crossing and taking part in our economy and civilization. It's got to break sometime. And you see what's happened to Europe already. Their civilization is unrecognizable in each country because they are now outnumbered in their own country. And here in 20 years, if you add the number of people coming in and compare that to the number of the national residents that live there pre-mass immigration, you'd realize that the locals aren't having enough kids. So in 20 years, they will be outnumbered in their own country, not only politically, but just by the numbers in the population. And you will see a mass exodus or a fleeing from those European countries. Destination unknown. Who knows where they'll go? I suspect, once again, they will try to open up the United States for a massive immigration influx of the world again, but this time it'll be because, this, that, and the other thing. Meanwhile, on the border, things are getting crazy. And like I mentioned for years now, that I suspected that in the near future we would have a combat theater right here on the southern border, and it appears that that is going to be the case. And especially with the Trump administration in there, because they've made it clear, especially with the Holman there, the guy that's going to be heading up as the new border czar, that we're going to take military action against Mexican drug cartels. And what that's going to look like is something like the Middle East. And the reason I say that is because whenever they attack those groups, those cartels, those military, paramilitary units, they're going to do it with things like Predator drones and other unmanned aerial vehicles, smart bombs, assassinations. They're going to be using things like miniguns off of small choppers. They're going to be using C-130s, where they're going to blow things up and kill people from the sky. And as we can tell from previous encounters with other countries where we've deployed these technologies, there is a lot of civilian collateral damage. And when there's civilian collateral damage, you necessarily get blowback, something that Ron Paul has been preaching for years, that when you involve yourself in foreign entanglements or play the policeman of the world and carry out military actions in foreign countries, then inevitably you're going to have blowback from collateral damage, And then think about what that would be like here in America if that happened, and realize that it's not that far-fetched for that combat zone to expand all the way into the Americas, especially with the updated DOD use of lethality, using unmanned drones or atomic, what do you call it? It would be any of the unmanned devices that they have at their disposal, including little tanks, robotic humans, etc., etc., death from the sky, which we've seen, and we're about to get into that. So let's get back into the news now after my little rant about the hopes and fears of changing administrations. Do I like the new administration? Yes, when opposed to the communist Marxist takeover that almost was completely finished, that just happened. And somehow we reverted, which makes me very suspicious on whether or not a deal was just made and we're going to kick the can down when it comes to this elitist control of our society versus actual citizens controlling that. And as you know, the election integrity idea is basically off limits. It's at that point that, questioning an election will get you put in categories you don't want to be in and on lists that you might not otherwise find yourself on. So be careful about that. However, it seems logical that no matter who won the election, you would wonder how and why and want to know the exact totals. And it also makes sense that if you were a nation that had sovereign laws and protected its citizens, that you would require ID for voting, considering we have to have ID for everything else, including renting a car. You can't buy cigarettes. You can't do all of these other things without IDs. You can't have a bank account. You can't do anything without an ID, but you can vote in certain states. And I should mention that those states also are blue. Those states remain blue. All of the states that didn't turn red this time are the exact states that do not require voter ID when voting. So let that sink in, or take that how you want it. Sometimes freedom is scary, as someone else says on YouTube there. But facts are also scary to some people, and we live in an era where now there are two sets of facts for every piece of historical idea, for every anthropological idea. There's two facts. One's based on feelings, one's based on data. Some are based on data and feelings. So really, we're starting to get into where there's so many fact checkers and new facts and rewrites on history that the next generations, if using only the internet, are not going to know anything, and the things that they know are not going to be so. Anyway, like I said, let's get back to the news here. Boop. Oh, I'm sorry, site unavailable till further notice. Were you guys paying attention to the Infowars drama? This was the way that their site looked right here, and evidently a judge woke up and saw this and was like, what the fuck? I didn't order this. What's going on? At least that's the story. So Trump nominates RFK. We kind of already talked about that for, human, what is it? Health and Human Services or whatever. So this guy's going to be in there. We'll see if anything actually changes and there's any change in the direction of the way that food is purchased, distributed, manufactured, and saturated with things that the human doesn't need, if you know what I mean. Anyway. Boop. So this would be funny. I thought that this would be funny. I saw everybody joking about this on the internet. If Trump was serious to really shake things up, maybe we should let Alex Jones be the press secretary, talking to all the other press that has both slandered him and, when they finally found something that they could attack him on, they all piled on it. But the man is undestroyable, it seems like, over on Infowars, which probably won't be Infowars much longer, but for the time being, I guess it is. It went out over the internet that the Onion had purchased Infowars, and that turned out to be not exactly the real story. Just like everything, there was different facts for the same thing. But anyway, here was the website that I was paying attention to, which was supposed to be an auction, sealed bidding, meaning that the bidders couldn't know what the other bidders were doing. And it turns out there were no bidders. There was only one bidder, and they weren't really going to pay money for it. They were just wanting to take control of it legally. And it seems there actually was no auction whatsoever. But I thought it was funny and ironic that the same day that Infowars went down, the Alex Jones network appeared instantaneously because they already knew this was going to happen and they have a backup. And this gets into a lot of weird areas legally because essentially what they're saying is they own this man's identity because he owes a silly amount in an obvious bogus, settlement, I guess you call it, or a judgment against him of $1.5 billion. Not that anybody other than, a very few number of people on the planet or nations could pay that amount of money. It's silly. It should have been a frivolous lawsuit. What they're saying is because he thought something wasn't real and had an opinion on it, that he owes this massive amount of money. Saying that someone lied or defamed them is quite opposite than saying that you saw an event happen over the television networks that are proven to be Operation Mockingbird lying manufacturing propaganda centers. I mean, come on. It's a television. It's a television. It's a television because they tell lies on it. That's what happens. But there's two sets of facts, so they went with basically trying to destroy him, making him give over any personal wealth, and then on the business end, his entire network, they want to take it. They want to turn it into supposedly the Onion News Network branch where they can, put out more satire, which is, I'm okay with satire, but it's pretty obvious that satire is not the goal here. The goal is to associate Alex Jones with fake things, even though if you actually took the time and put your feelings or your judgments on what you think about the guy and go look through all the stories that he's had over the years, and you'd find out he's 95 or more % right than he is wrong, and also that the news agencies are quite a bit more wrong than they are right. But we know that they're propaganda networks. They're literal CIA Mockingbird propaganda networks. So supposedly, this is not the Onion. Alex Jones Infowars bought by the Onion at bankruptcy auction, which later turned out not to be a thing. Not satire. The Onion acquires Infowars. As part of the deal, the Onion will own Infowars websites, products, inventory, and this is what I think a lot of it's really all about, is the customer list. Alex Jones has probably amassed millions and millions of customers on email lists and subscription lists and customer lists for the various products that they sell there, which means that these bozos would take control of that. Oops, wrong button. They would totally take control. And what do you think they would do with all those lists? Well, they share them with third parties like government and other, people that are not necessarily looking out for your best interests, but they get a hold of that. If this goes forward and they do acquire it, if some left-leaning or government-affiliated entity ends up with that subscription list, customer list, that's going to be no bueno. They're going to put you on list. You're going to be on list. You're going to constantly be harassed with your data being breached, basically in violation of the Constitution, because what they're doing is essentially saying that Alex Jones's identity is a purchasable item, and that is slavery. That's what you're getting into. You're getting into several constitutional amendment violations by trying to say that you could take his name, you could take his right to association, which is those subscription lists and those email lists and all those things that were private are not going to be private anymore. Not that anything is ever private, but this is just openly violation of all the people's rights that are on those lists, because they didn't agree to be on a list of one of these, whoever gets it, the Onion or the owner of the Onion or some other group buys it. Now, there was a bunch of other groups trying to buy it, but evidently they never got a chance to bid or even participate because there actually was no auction. And here's a Zero Hedge article about it right here. Not so fast. Infowars auction thrown into chaos after judge investigates malarkey. Just when you thought least funny website on the planet, the Onion, had prevailed in the Infowars auction, the judge in the case put the brakes on the sale after it was revealed that the anti-Jones bankruptcy trustee did not accept the highest bid and instead allowed the Sandy Hook families to, and it's not the families, it's their lawyers, to assist by pledging the massive judgment towards the auction, which Jones says is illegal, but it's obvious that they tried to pull some malarkey and violate all kinds of federal law and people's rights, etc., etc. But let's move on to some cooler stuff. The time-traveling jellyfish found to age backwards, an accidental discovery. Now, the internet has been going nuts about this, and they're calling it the time-traveling jellyfish, but I think I've known for a really long time, I don't know when it was, about the immortality of certain jellyfish that can go back to an earlier state in their life, which would be really cool for humans to do. And I bet there's someone somewhere playing with that exact thing. Most living creatures are bound by the fact of birth, aging, and death. Few, however, have evolved to break the typical life cycle. The aptly named immortal jellyfish, Turripitosis Dorney, I probably butchered that name, but anyway, they're one of those such animals. And in a surprise discovery now published by Proceedings of the National Academy of Science, scientists have added its cousin, the comb jellyfish, some other crazy name I'm not going to say, to the coveted Forever Young Club. Researchers in the University of Bergen in Norway realized that they had de-aging specimens in the lab when they found larval, I'm going to try that one, stenophore in the tank where a mature comb jellyfish was supposed to be. In other words, it reversed in age. The unintended finding begs the question of just how many more animals can age in reverse. The work challenges our understanding of early animal development and body plans. What's really cool about this thing is, everybody got all excited because of recent headlines talking about the time-traveling jellyfish and didn't realize, how old is this one? This was May 4th, 2015 right here, talking about the same thing, the immortal jellyfish. And I would bet you money that geneticists and weirdos somewhere are trying to crack the code of this so that they could implement it in humans. And this also tells me that, just because I'm thinking about it, that means lots of other people with a lot of power and technology and privacy were also thinking about it. So, matter of fact, there's even, I believe, a science fiction French movie about this exact topic. I forgot the name of it. But they take this gene and they put it in humans, which allows us to stop aging. And then it turns weird because nobody's being born anymore, which is basically happening in Europe right now with the fertility rates or infertility rates and birth rates. But think about this. If people got older, they would choose not to have children because they would want to concentrate their wealth and intellect on their self instead of their legacy, which is quite a weird concept. But when you think about the merging of technology and biology, you realize that this is the direction that we will be going. There will be an mRNA gene therapy or something to that effect, maybe even using other kinds of nanotechnology to change around our genetics to mimic the immortal jellyfish, or what's, the newer one that they're saying now, the time traveling jellyfish, because it travels back to a previous state in its biological cycle. Now that will be cool. Yeah, I guess. But think about this idea. Everybody will also be connected to the interwebs at an unprecedented level. Not like you looking at your phone watching, Mountain High Time right now, but I mean instant, complete communication. And that's what, even Elon Musk is working on. So no matter which side of the political spectrum or ideological spectrum you look at, they're all headed to the same result. And that is the singularity of which I've talked about many times, where biology and technology will completely mix. Now, on to some funny stuff. The West's greatest weapon in the war with China, online porn. North Korean troops in Ukraine have reportedly become addicted to pornography. For the West, this could prove a vital military breakthrough. That's right. If we could crash the Chinese authoritarian communist censorship, we could put a lot of poo nanny out there. I mean, we could just, bombard them. And we know it'll work because there's a reason that communist nations over there are not letting them look at Western stuff. It's because they know it destroys the mind of youth. It completely destroys them and gives them, basically a drug addiction through the internet. Now imagine when you don't have to go to the internet to look up these ideas. You just click a little button in your virtual interface that's not even real in your brain, where you have instant gratification to the next level. So instant gratification in the form of audio, video, stimulation directly transmitted to your brain. Or does that sound too woo-woo for you? Because it's already becoming a reality. So if they do that to China, there are going to be a lot of guys over there love me long time in themselves, because they have endless porn to look at, and that they've been so oppressed as far as, being able to have artistic expression. There is a place for that kind of thing, as long as it doesn't become decadent and disgusting, and where they try to push children into that world of weirdness. And we've already seen how that rolled out in the Western world. So indeed, it would be a good weapon against China. Look what the crazy mindset's doing over here. Seattle woman overwhelmed by the election, killed with father's ice axe, police claim. Now, I kind of already poked fun at the crazy people that were saying that their constitutional and inalienable rights would be taken away, because they didn't actually say that. They were just, screaming, my rights, my rights, my rights, my rights. But when it really comes down to it, what are we really talking about when people think their rights are being taken away? The only rights, which are not rights, is the idea that you should kill your offspring, and that somehow is a right, when in reality, having the offspring is the real right. Being able to have children and pass down your DNA and have descendants and not be a evolutionary dead end is your real right, not the right to kill your offspring so that you can indulge in life now without the responsibilities of your actions. And I know there's those people, what about incest and rape? And we all know that's a super small percentage of the reason anyone ever gets that concept accomplished. That's just not the mainstream. It's used as birth control in women about 25 to 40 years old that have repeated incidences of infanticide. And somehow they've been duped into believing that that is their right instead of actually having those children and having a claim on the future through having their DNA passed on in a real legacy so that they don't end up as an evolutionary dead end and essentially existing for no real reason. Is that harsh? Anyway, that's the insanity of it. And now we're getting into a worldwide society where, we're coming up with more and more reasons to turn people off from birth to death. And it's looking like it's going to get crazier and crazier. And whenever I, stop hammering and looking at these articles, we'll get to that in a minute. Police woman overwhelmed by election killed father with an ice axe. And there's actually been several violent occurrences because people think crazy stuff. No one's actually taking that right away for you to kill your offspring. You can go to any number of states and still get it done. Matter of fact, in the state I live in, you can get it done all the way to the day before it's born, which really trips me out because if you go to the hospital and you look in the premature wing of the kids there's a bunch of kids in little glass buckets that came early that are the same age as some of the children that are being disappeared. And it's just kind of a sad thing. But anyway, go bags, passports, foreign assets. People are crazy and they're preparing to be the target of Trump's revenge, as if any of these people really were a target of anyone. And really all it is a bunch of people that are worried that some of the wrongdoings they did will come to light and they might actually have to face the music, thinking that, we were going in one direction and now we're going back in the other direction. But I don't think there's going to be too many of those occurrences because government always protects government. That's what I've learned throughout my life. No matter who it is or what party or whatever, they always protect each other. Government protects government. That's the concept people don't get. Drop off in Democrat votes ignites conspiracy theories on the left and the right. Well, people are wondering where this big extra group of voters came from in 2020 that didn't happen in 2024. But what they don't know is there was trucks out there. They just realized that people were watching and there was too much attention on it and it wasn't going to go down the same way again. However, in certain places, it seems like they still tried it. And some interesting things I think are going to be uncovered soon. Just not soon enough for, certain things to happen. I hope I'm not talking too much in riddles. But anyway, the DOGE Department, the Department of Government Efficiency, the U.S. National Institute of Health spent $592,000 of your tax dollars to explore why why chimpanzees throw their feces. Why do they throw their feces at us? I don't know. Not only that, they spent millions of dollars on transgender monkeys and all kinds of weird stuff. Now let's get back to deportation. Over the years, since Bill Clinton endorsed this idea, we have been ejecting U.S. military veterans that served our country over some really petty misdemeanors and things like that, while also allowing completely criminal invader illegal aliens to come up and commit crimes and stay and then commit crimes again and stay, but also receiving benefits. And this is why people are mad. But weirdly, those people that were probably the best immigrants to have ever got deported over dumb reasons. veterans unjustly deported. At least 94,000 veterans have been deported since the passage of the Illegal Immigration Reform and Immigrant Responsibility Act of 1996. The U.S. has deported tens of thousands of military veterans since the passage of the Illegal Immigration Reform and the Immigration Responsibility Act of 1996. Some estimates point to at least 94,000. A majority of the service members deported were legal residents who committed at least 3 misdemeanors, making them deportable, which is funny to me because our government lets in hardcore felons and it's like, yeah, well, we're a sanctuary city, so, you know. Non-citizen veterans can be deported if they're convicted of certain felonies. Well, that's obvious. But a groundbreaking study by the Government Accounting Office's GAO found that the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement did not consistently follow its policies involving veterans who were placed on removal proceedings. Those policies were put in place to ensure that immigration enforcement officials took additional steps to consider the military service of non-citizen veterans facing deportation. So, and, you know, people are all mad about this in New Mexico, and they're pushing it, and they're blaming it on Trump. And even though most of this all happened in the previous decades now, right here, the deportation of non-citizen veterans is unintended consequence of the Illegal Immigration Reform and Immigrant Responsibility Act signed by former President Bill Clinton in 1996. So that's messed up. They shouldn't be deported at all. They've paid their fee. They've paid their due. They've got in the club. There's no reason. Now, if they commit hardcore felonies, I don't really think that we should deport them either. You just throw them in the prison with all of the other people that are in there. Isn't it weird how the U.S. government has always deported seemingly the wrong people and let the wrong people stay? And they just keep doing that. You're supposed to not notice. Now let's get into some controversy, especially for this channel right here on Mountain High Time. Report cannabis tied to alarming rise in cancer, birth defects, and accelerated aging. I look good. I don't know what they're talking about. Anyway, Crawley, Australia. A startling new paper highlights the disturbing connection between using cannabis and rising rates of various cancers and congenital abnormalities, as well as DNA damage. Now, I don't know about you, but this whole various cancers, congenital abnormalities, as well as DNA damage sounds like a certain other program or string of events that has happened over the decades, but a lot more recently. And I'll leave that to your imagination to figure out what I'm talking about. The research paints a sobering picture of hidden health consequences of widespread cannabis consumption as more and more countries legalize its recreational use. Researchers from the University of Western Australia found that cannabis exposure was associated with significant increase in cancers, particularly breast, pancreatic, liver, thyroid, and testicular. Testicular cancer rose almost 2.6 times among cannabis users. Now, always, because I have a deductive logic type mind, I'm wondering what else do these people also do or consume? Do they get their vaccines on a regular? Do they drink large amounts of alcohol? Because, well, not to be stereotypical, but most Australians also drink a lot of alcohol, which nowadays is made with high fructose corn syrup. Just saying. Not saying there's a connection, not at all. I'm just pointing out that probably this group of people that they tested has a lot of other, things going on in their environment that they might want to look at. But anyway, let's read the rest of their thing. The perspective published in the journal Addiction Biology also discovered that cancers in users tend to develop much earlier and more aggressively. Where else have I heard that before? Earlier and more aggressively. Beyond cancer, the scientists uncovering troubling links to birth defects, epidemiological data shows across Europe and the United States revealed elevated rates of severe developmental abnormalities, including missing limbs, heart problems, and chromosome disorders. In other words, cannabis users appear to be passing on DNA mutations to their children in the womb. The link we've described between cannabis use and genotoxicity has far-reaching consequences. This new research shows how genetic damage from cannabis use can be passed down generationally. Notes to co-authors Dr. Stuart Reese in the media release, Reese believes this should reframe the discussion surrounding cannabis legalization. Isn't that weird? All of a sudden they came up with that. And, you know, I'm telling you, I've heard all of those terms before listed in another arena of research, if you get my drift. I hope you do. Otherwise, I really can't help you. I really can't help you, man. Scientists discover life in the most uninhabitable places on Earth. I'm not even going to bother reading this article because, you know, I knew that in kindergarten. So all of the coldest, freeziest places, all of the deepest, darkest, most pressure-filled places, all of the hottest, driest, waterless places, all of the hottest, hot water, moist places, every single place we look on this earth is covered and saturated in some form of life. So the question being, is that true for the universe? And I think we're going to find out that it probably is, with a few factors. What those factors are, I don't think they know yet. I think they know, but they don't know yet. But this comes as, you know, no surprise to anybody that pays attention to any kind of microbial science whatsoever, or the evolution of the idea, at least, of the evolution of how we came to be on this planet. With the idea that we had a universal common ancestor, that was back in the past, a Luca or whatever it is, the last, ancestor we share with all of the other crap on the planet. Supposedly there is one of those things out there. Now, the question is if they do find life on another planet, will it be the same type of life we have on Earth? In other words, will it have the same genetic origin or the same gene setup as what we find here on Earth? Or will it be of another origin? I don't know, but it seems like they're pushing really fast for you to get used to the idea that there are extraterrestrials. And not only are there extraterrestrials, but extraterrestrial forms of microbes. Ain't that going to be great? Well, we had an outbreak because of this or that or the other thing. You can see how that could roll out. But I'm telling you, I don't care if Mr. Frogman lands an anti-gravitic device on my lawn. I'm still going to be questioning whether or not they made that in a lab somewhere, considering the amount of chimeric science that we've already done, and gene editing and gene manipulating and all of that stuff, as they call it, genotoxicity. Anyway, credit card debt hits record 1.17 trillion. New York Fed research shows. Well, obviously people were broke for 4 years in a bad economy, and they were putting it on the credit card, thinking the future might have better prospects, and maybe they will. Virtual verse, artificial intelligence is better at writing poems than William Shakespeare. A bizarre new study found it out. People prefer poems written by artificial intelligence to works by famous writers like Shakespeare and Lord Byron. A study found. This term has become kind of a troll, in my opinion. Study found. Study. Who did the study? Who and how did they do the study? That's the question, isn't it, really? Readers rated virtual verse as more emotional, creative, or beautiful until they found out it was turned out by a bot. But this goes to my point, that point in history, the singularity of when biology and technology merge, may have already happened. AI is becoming an increasingly real, interactive force in human life. Natural gas prices break out, level ahead of cold bomb invasion. We kind of already knew that. Poor Europeans, they're going to be all froze up. Here's this other guy, this Hedgeseth, Secretary of Defense. I like him because he's a vet. He's 10-year combat veterans. I like him because he lost his legs. So I know that he has some inclination of what he's sending people in to do if he is the new Secretary of Defense. However, he does have some weird political beliefs, so there's that. Here I found on the web, because of the era of two different facts and two different histories and all of this. This is a thing from 1996, 1997, Leading Edge Research Group, all rights reserved, P.O. Box 7530, Yelm, Washington 98597. Anyway, it's a if I could say it, it's a list of the times that fluoride was used. And I found out today that the whole internet says that fluoride used by the Nazis is just a conspiracy theory, that it never happened, blah, blah, blah. However, there is documented evidence of fluoride being used, poisoning people, maiming them, and different things, all the way from back in 1855. Germany first paid damages to neighbors injured by fluoride emissions. In 1893, smelters in Friedberg, Germany, paid out 80,000 marks in damages for fluorine contamination injuries and 644,000 marks for permanent relief. In 1900, the existence of smelting industry in Germany and Great Britain threatened by successful lawsuits for fluorine damage and by burdensome laws and regulations. But it goes on and on. Now, I'll put this in the chat, this PDF, or at least the link to where I got it from. But it goes on and on all the way until, like, I think 1944. Now, the new history or facts on the internet says that fluoride was never used. They couldn't even manufacture it back in World War II, despite it being used and stuff. But whatever. You research yourself. Don't believe me. Don't believe them. Do it yourself. An Indian family froze to death crossing the Canada-U.S. border in a perilous trip becoming more common. Well, I think that people might want to look into thermal and other kind of clothing, like some Gore-Tex to keep the moisture and the cold air out, and have some good layers under there, and the right boots, and this won't be a problem. This won't be a problem, and this won't be sad. This will never happen to me. I'm just saying. U.S. health officials report the first case of new form of Mpox, because they don't want to call it monkeypox anymore, in a traveler. All right. Look, they look like little donuts that got squished. Like, ew. Anyway. Oh, my God. They don't want to tell you that this comes from almost only one group of people, one demographic. But just like any other thing, it'll eventually spread out. I just think it seems like they really want it to do it faster than it is. Xi, whatever his name is, seizes a role as global defender of free trade against Trump. He's just mad because we're not going to be buying all that intellectual property theft at rock bottom dollars, while the American counterpart or the Western counterpart doesn't get paid for their invention or their copyrighted material or intellectual property. And a lot of people don't understand that. They don't understand tariffs. Tariffs are designed to make foreign goods cost more so that they can't undercut American-made workers and products. And it closes niches that will open up for American workers. Hey, I can make that. I can make it that cheap. Then they sell it. Then you buy American. American gets paid. They make it in America. That's the whole idea. I don't even understand why people were being silly about this. I guess it's because they buy into the fake reality of things. The sad, silly spectacle of Jake Paul and Mike Tyson, which seemed to me to be a kind of a rigged fight in the way that I don't think Jake Paul was trying to hammer Mike Tyson, because, for one, he was probably afraid that old man would knock him the F out if he got too close and allowed him to actually punch him. But he knew that he was faster and that Mike Tyson's legs were gone and that he's 58 years old and ain't as fast and can't take, hits as well as he might have when he was young, just because of the nature of aging and brain injury. However, he did get out there and last 8 rounds at 2 minutes each for a 58-year-old man is impressive. If you've ever been in a fight, you know that after it goes past about 15 to 30 seconds, normal people are tired and they're done. And most fights are over within 15 seconds, especially if one or more of them knows how to actually fight and pushes the right buttons. Turns out the zombie apocalypse isn't as fun as they said it would be. Oh no, dangerously disconnected world. Actually, I already know where this is going. This is the danger of, people not being connected. But actually, I joke around that there's phone zombies all the time. And that includes people in my own household. Sometimes you can't watch a movie or eat dinner or do anything because they're glued to their phone. Their phone is the answer. It's the almighty. And that's exactly why I wrote the idiot code. And if you haven't listened to that, I would suggest that you do that. It kind of is my theory about the way things are going and how it could turn out in a science fiction setting. But anyway, I think there's phone zombies already. I see people walking into crap. Some kind of thing happens and their brain won't let them put down the phone and use both hands. They get stuck using one hand. I've seen this everywhere. I've seen it in parking lots, inside stores. When people start to get in a fight or they get razzled by some kind of emergency, their first thing is to go to the phone. Go to the phone. I don't know. The phone's not going to help you. You might look up something on Google, but who knows if Google's giving you the right information anymore. These baby-chasing grandparents are turbocharging the demographic shifts. And it says from Austin, Texas to Charleston, South Carolina, golf and grandbabies beckon. I think it's cool. Besides, I can't say nothing. I'm 47 going on 48, and I have 2 toddlers. So, I almost feel like I'm pushing the grandparent age right now. And, yeah. You think that's probably because the millennial and Z age groups aren't taking care of their kids right and maybe leading them astray with certain ideas coming from a bunch of fake idols and a fake whole system that's designed to destabilize them and make them crazy people? Well, I think that's what's going on. And speaking of which, prosecutors accuse Sean Combs of trying to contact witnesses from jail. This is funny. And I'm pretty sure that this whole Combs thing is going to turn out to be mostly adults being assaulted. And this, in my opinion, was meant to go to the top of the headlines to overshadow the Epstein. Because we all know that they found an island and a guy that was trafficking children and had a helper that helped traffic children. And, he got arrested for exploiting and trafficking children, and a woman got arrested for helping traffic children, and they got arrested, but nobody that actually used the trafficked children got arrested. Still to this day, who on the Epstein list has been arrested? Nobody. And it seems like this Sean Diddy Combs is a partially made-for-TV event to cover up the other event. Almost like when Malvoy Floyd got murdered by the U.S. government over arguments of what land would be used for, and you saw BLM on the headlines everywhere. BLM, BLM, BLM. And those pesky, patriot people and those freedom-loving landowners and stuff. And then this guy Floyd got murdered by the U.S. government, and BLM and Floyd were at the top of the headlines. But then all of a sudden, there was this other BLM, and now they skyrocketed to the headlines. And then there was this other Floyd, and then he skyrocketed to the headlines. And now when you look up BLM or Floyd, guess which story you're going to find? Probably not both. You'll have to sift very hard and be very specific to find that, because somehow the terms in the search engines got completely replaced by the exact same terms at a later date. And if you know what I'm saying, I think you do. Diddy. Killer robots are about to fill the Ukrainian skies. Well, they already have been. And matter of fact, I was telling you and predicting you, if you've been following along the various banned and removed channels, that we were about to see killer robots on the field of battle. And then, lo and behold, they do it. Even back when they first put out that robot dog, my first thought was, well, they're going to put a gun on that. And it wasn't long till somebody did that, and then the company's like, oh, we would never do that to our drones. That we don't even agree with that. That's so ugly and offensive. And then in the meantime, selling those exact same designs and robots to the military industrial complex, where they put guns right on there. And now we know that is a reality, and that is going to be the future of warfare. It's going to be a mix of technological and kinetic warfare. There's no need to use nuclear bombs. However, that's always an option for crazy people who want to change the maps on the world and change the dynamic of this civilization. Oprah's full price tag for Kamala Harris campaign event is finally revealed, and it will shock you. I don't even care. They probably gave her millions and millions of dollars. And I had other news up on these websites, but they change your headlines. So in the time it took me to open that and start talking on the other ones, they already changed it. How the U.S. drug arrest made Mexico more violent. I don't even want to read it because I already know, like I told you, we're about to have a combat zone there, especially with the incoming administration. If they do what they say they're going to do and actually go after cartels and destroy them. Now, that's going to be an uncomfortable reality because, like I said, there is going to be collateral damage, a popularity contest between the so-called victims and the military force that is killing said cartel members and cartel organizations. There's going to be collateral damage, and then there's going to be blowback. That's just a fact and a reality of how these things work. So what's going to happen is we're going to go after the cartels. We're going to destroy stuff from the sky. Little Jimmy or little Juan is going to get killed on accident. He's going to become a martyr. Then there's going to be a popularity contest. And guess what? The U.S. military and the U.S. empire hasn't done very well when it comes to popularity contests overseas. So I don't think they're going to do good this time. Pharmacies yanking cold medicines from the shelves. So what are the options now? You know what? I think it seems like they do this every time everybody's about to get sick. So I'd be on the lookout for that. Anyway, feeling stuffy? Are you ready to search for NyQuil, Benadryl, Sudafed, or PE? Not so fast. The Food and Drug Administration has proposed ending the use of oral, whatever, however you say that, pseudoephedrine. I think that's not pseudoephedrine. That's the other one. Pseudoephedrine is the good one that actually works. But it's weird. The few medications out there like Benadryl and all these other things that we know actually work and are, for the most part, non-toxic. Maybe you shouldn't use them over time or too much of it, but for the most part, they could be life-saving even, especially in the case of Benadryl or things that like Sudafed or even Mucinex. Those things do work. Yeah, they're not that healthy, but you're trying to do something that's immediate, that's causing health emergency, could potentially be a health emergency. And those three medications are life-saving medications. So it's weird that they would want to regulate the good ones and not so much on all of the other forms of toxin available in the food and medicine. Just weird. I don't know. Just my opinion. Judge pauses on the onion takeover. We covered that. It actually wasn't an auction, so there's going to be an auction, but there wasn't one yet. So all kinds of fake news. Liberal elite at UN climate conference call for a meat tax. Well, we already knew that. They want to make your meat more expensive. But that's all right, because Arby's has the meats, according to them. Look at this. We're going to be spending a lot more on natural gas because they're going to be selling it to everybody that's going to be freezing their nuts off this winter. Well, and next winter. Rare Bees nuke I don't know what this is. Rare Bees? Is that some kind of stupid millennial talk? Whatever. Nuke. Mark Zuckerberg plans a atomic-powered AI data center. So that's just silly. I was talking about that the other night, and it's just funny because they need massive amounts of water to build these AI centers. And what are they doing there? Well, they're just building and building and building and building on the prison bars that's going to keep you completely tracked and traced in the future. And it doesn't matter which party or which, who gets in. They're going to do it. The corporations already do it. The governments do it. Everybody's spying. It's not that they're spying on you in real time. It's that they have the ability to. So no, maybe your phone's not actually sending those pictures to somebody. It just sends it to an AI that could be interpreted by someone else as, a reason to look more or listen more. And you sign user agreements for televisions and products that allow them to listen to you, track you, and it's happening everywhere. There's a whole infrared and microwave world out there, keeping tabs on a complete three-dimensional space, which is the human domain. And although there's probably not a human looking at it, spying on you, watching you, scrunch in the closet, they could potentially use the devices around you at any time to actually do that. So it's not a reality. It's just that, are you important enough for someone to watch you scrunch? Scrunch. Let's move on from scrunching. World's most consumed vegetable oil hits 2-year high. That's right. Food, oils, everything's going up. Taiwan receives its first batch of World War III arms. I'm just kidding. Of HIMARS. HIMARS? I don't even know how they're pronouncing that. HIMARS. Rocket systems from the U.S. So we're about to become one of the world's biggest war manufacturers again. Not like we ever stopped being, but we're going to be pumping out those profits soon. Biden lifts ban on U.S. defense firms in Ukraine, and we talked about that before. And Russia has now responded, saying that if anybody launches long-range missiles into their territory, even if they're just proxying for a nuclear power, that they might respond with nuclear weapons. Let's hope that's not the case. Space Force will test and launch their ICBM Minuteman III shortly after the election. A lot of people didn't even notice that. But while everybody was freaking out about who was going to be the next president of the United States, the military-industrial complex and Space Force was testing one of their new ICBM Minuteman III intercontinental ballistic missiles, which I believe this one has a MIRV inside of it. If you don't know what the MIRV is, it's basically where one warhead becomes a bunch of warheads. And so like one bomb could potentially take out an entire mega city like New York, Chicago, Detroit, Miami, Washington, D.C., Los Angeles, San Francisco, San Diego, Phoenix, on and on and on. They could take it out with one. Or they could just make everybody in a world of hurt by, dropping like 10 to 15 individuals, warheads, off that fly to different locations along the coast or an area, completely destroying everything in its path, at least in that small area. And if you ever want to see the kind of spectrum of nuclear bombs, there's a couple of good videos on YouTube that demonstrate the size potential of each and every nuke in the arsenal, at least what's public knowledge. I never understood why people thought, well, I know all about the nukes. You don't know about what they don't tell you about. Stop pretending you do. I hate the people that are out there acting like they know everything because they got pieces of literature and material put out by the government who doesn't tell the truth all the time and then takes that and runs with that as absolute, actual fact. When indeed we've been lied to, manipulated by government over and over and over again. So when someone gets something or gets in the know-how and then they get a little, stick up their ass that they know everything about everything, and then they act like things are a certain way and couldn't be another way. I try not to think like that because I realize the fact is we know little about each and every topic, and the only things that we do know are provided through this internet of things or study, and sometimes those have been misleading at best and flat out untruths at other times from everything, almost every topic. So beware of the experts. Compare them to all the experts, I guess. And be careful when you hear consensus. Consensus among who? Amongst people on a particular side of an argument only. So we're also, stuck in a world with this, like I said, two facts for everything, depending on which side of the spectrum the experts are on. It depends on what data they show you to back up their theory, the conspiracy theories. Anyway, when we eat meat and dairy, this is a conspiracy theory, knowing that the word conspiracy comes from the word, perspire or expire, inspire, or what, all of the spires that have to do with breathing, right? This one directly relates to that. What a conspiracy that when we eat meat and dairy, this is causing 20% of all the greenhouse emissions, so it's damaging a lot of things in the world. I find that completely silly, knowing that some of the least amounts of life are on Earth right now that there's ever been. So we're more of a going extinct phase than we are worrying about too many farts and agriculture going on. FBI says bigoted text messages also sent to LGBTQ and Hispanic people. And I guarantee you that this whole scandal turns out to be the Democratic Party continuing on what they've always done, which is race baiting, race manipulation, race politics, all the way back into the 1800s and the Civil War, when they were the party of the KKK. They were a party that was against the civil rights movement. They were the party that created things like the Jim Crow laws. They were the party that created ideas like segregation and on and on and on and on. And now they pretend to be the saviors of any and every minority because they're the Democratic Party. But I bet, most likely, you'll find out that all the racist and bigoted text messages sent to African Americans, Hispanics, and the LGBTQ movement was most likely from a Democrat source. I'm just saying, we'll see how that turns out. But just like all of the supposed racial attacks, like 99% of them turn out to be self-inflicted supposed attacks where they wrote a swastika on their own thing, or they wrote the N-word on, they were the ones that did it, making up scenes of racial crimes that didn't exist, trying to be relevant, trying to be important, trying to make a mark on the world in the most disgusting way possible, which is to make up bullshit. Mucho caca de toro, as I said before. T-Mobile hacked in massive Chinese breach of telecom's network. I don't think that's the first or the last time. None of your information is private. It never will be. And this is where it's all going. Wi-Fi can be used to influence brainwaves, has potential for hypnotic effects and social engineering. And I've covered on this channel many times how magnetic fields and electromagnetic waves and light and flicker rate and tones and all of these things can be used to manipulate you emotionally. And now they're getting to the point where there is nanotech invented in this world that can also interact with that. And that's a real thing. So we have machines that could see the picture of the ideas that you're thinking of in your mind. There's machines that can write out the words that you're thinking. There's machines that know how you feel. There's machines that can check the physiological changes that's happening. There's machines that can detect pheromones, hormones, and other things. There are machines that can look all the way through your body and look at your internal parts. There are machines that keep track of your gait, how you walk. There are machines that keep track of the dimensions of your body and the spaces between the parts in your bones and the spaces between the parts of the features of your face and other things, the length of your arms, the length of your legs, the size of your head. All of these things can be measured, and there are machines and algorithms and AI working to use all of that information to get a complete and total idea of what's going on in the human domain. And people just don't understand that we're fast approaching this time period where what you thought was sci-fi is not sci-fi. On with the news here. These people freaking out about this guy's tattoo. It turns out it's just a Jewish cross. It's not a Nazi symbol like they thought it was. New study, microplastics affecting the weather. Now that's a conspiracy we're going to have to get into another time. Like, I want to trip on that. Is microplastics affecting the weather, or is that just another one of the complete conspiracy theories that are out there? It's fall. Get out there and check out the autumn colors. But it seems more like winter. I think it's about to snow where I'm at. Firearm suppressor demand explodes at historic rate. I'm not even going to read that article. Just let that sink in on what the potential that might mean for the reality you're living in. A powerful AI breakthrough is about to transform the world. The technology driving ChatGPT is capable of so much more. What's coming next will make talking bots look like mere distractions. Something I've said myself. An AI revolution is about to spread way beyond chatbots, from new plastic-eating bacteria and new cancer cures to autonomous helper robots and killer bots and self-driving cars and generative AI technology that gained prominence as the engineers of ChatGPT is poised to change our lives in ways that make talking bots look more like mere distractions. Kind of repeating the headline there. But I'm kind of already the pioneer of telling you where that's going to go. People talk a lot about the chance of extraterrestrial life interacting with us. The governments look like they're just, it's just around the corner where they say, there's extraterrestrials, but, they'll probably say they're too far and they're too far away to interact with or whatever. Just the idea will change civilization by itself. But in my concept, they're already creating what could be considered extraterrestrials in cyberspace. Cyberspace is where it's happening. Programmable, printable, modified DNA and RNA. The new human will be grown, not raised, in ecto-life-like fashion. You will start in a pod and you will end in a pod. This will be the beginning of the singularity of when biology and technology merge. This extraterrestrial is AI, and the genetically designed, created hominid that it will create. This will replace humans. This is the future of mankind. This will be done first with the use of mRNA nanobot technology. If you've heard of the hydrogel platform, that's what I'm talking about. That is the future of biology and technology right now. Basically, alien life is being created in cyberspace. There are AIs that now are creating strands of DNA, or at least trying, writing DNA. They can play with DNA in cyberspace. And it's looking like the future generations are going to start in a pod and end in a pod, if you know what I mean. Anyway, check out Civilization Cycle. Buy me a coffee. I get half the proceeds from that. So if you support that, you support me. But if you want to just support me for this channel, you can PayPal me in the link in the description box below. And that's all I got for Mountain High Time right now. So I will edit this and put in some other stuff. And thank you for watching Mountain High Time. And I'll see you later when I got more stoner stuff to talk about. It's just hard to fit in a schedule with little toddlers running around and having a spouse that has their own job and own schedule. So hopefully, I think the only time really I'm going to get to do this is in the morning. So I'm going to try to start doing a morning show that's daily, and then this Saturday show that I didn't do yesterday, probably on Saturday, but if I'm lazy, on Sunday. So peace out, mofos, YOLO.
Guess I'll just close my eyes. Guess I'll just close my eyes.
Are you trying to tell me you're gay or something?
Gay, straight, retarded. Why do we have to put labels on everything?
Because we do alright, or else no one's going to know what the fuck's going on.
Aha! Aha! What do you know from funny, you bastard?
That's very dirty.
All right, welcome to Mountain High Time, where we look through the news, or at least, here, let me fix this shit. Where we look, ooh, that's weird. You can see the little hole there, huh? Turn it off and see how it sounds. How does that sound, Becky Roo? How does that sound? Where you can just see my teeth through there. Oh, that's nifty. That's crazy looking right there. Maybe I should just turn this one and go like this, and